This podcast was brought to you by Equal Opportunity. And now that the alt-right have left, welcome to the show. Hello, and welcome to Monkey Boardcast, a monthly review and discussion show with me, the Jonin Monkey.
And me, Sven the Crusader, with a lot more free time on my hands. I've not had the best month, but I'm not going to get into that. Instead, I'm just going to crack a lot of political jokes in the Q&A session to blow off steam.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, there's not much else we could talk about. I mean, it's the month of May, and, well, I know some family members have birthdays in there, and that's it, really.
Yeah, all there is to really remark upon about May right now is, well, it's the subject of that one song in Fallout 3 about marriages in the month of May.
We already inspired our non-existent female fans to write fanfictions. We don't need to do it again.
Suddenly I'm sad. But moving on.
If you're a female fan and you exist, thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate literally everyone who subscribes to this channel. I say as I look upon our sadly depleted reserve of questions.
Yep, and speaking of which, we now move into
Q&A!
This is the section where we answer questions from the audience. If you'd like us to answer your questions, either leave them in the comments or send them to me via Twitter with the hashtag MBQuestions. Either way, please send them to us. We're getting kind of low at the moment, but we'll make do with what we have.
Our first question comes from Vice of Legends.
What is the worst typing and or point-and-click adventure game that you have ever played? Mine is King's Quest III. Even though I like the series, King's Quest III was just completely unfun. The King's Quest Redux remake makes it tolerable at best.
This is interesting, because I never really played that many point-and-click adventure games. I mean, I played the Monkey Island series, and actually, now that I'm speaking of the Monkey Island series, oh god, number 4, Escape from Monkey Island. Talk about a game powered by moon logic, both in the plot and in the item combinations.
Oh god, yeah. That's that obsession with moon logic and challenging puzzles that kind of drove adventure games off the map, really.
Unfortunately, yes. And what's... Oh, never mind. Worst point-and-click adventure game I've ever played. The Walking Dead Season 2.
I was wondering if that was gonna come up.
I forgot that it counted as a point-and-click adventure game and not an edgelord wank fantasy.
Yeah, the less said about that mess, the better.
You've already heard me gibber like a mouther about it.
Yes indeed. In my case, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I haven't played as many as I'd like. I've only played really about 3 or 4 at best. So, of that, the weakest one would be Murder on the Orient Express. And it's not really a bad game as such. It was just weaker compared to the ones I've played. Mainly because, well, the moon logic was reaching new levels.
Oh boy. Well, as somebody who watched your review of Evil Under the Sun, that's probably saying a lot.
Yes, in fact, you know what? I've been mentioning it a couple of times and I danced around it due to spoilers, but you know what? I'm going to describe this puzzle. If you just give me a second. Right, so, this puzzle, I am going to quote the game FAQs here, keeping in mind that a lot of the gameplay works, like in the case of Monkey Island, item combinations, as in, not only do you have to use certain items to complete certain puzzles, you then have to combine 2 items in order to make a new item which can then solve the puzzle, and oh boy, in order to get a radio working and A, call for help, and B, try to find out more information about the potential suspects, you have to do the following. Everything that you need is in your inventory. The glass bowl, the copper bracelet, the metal statuette, the orange juice, the butter knife, the nails from the crate, and the copper wire. First, prepare the copper bracelet, copper wire, and the butter knife.
Put the copper bracelet and the hammer into the windows on the left side of the gear button window. You should now have a straightened bracelet with a hook on one end. Put the copper wire and the pliers, or cleaver, it doesn't matter which, into the window on the left, and you now have 2 bits of wire. Put the butter knife and the hammer into the windows on the left and click the gear button. You now have a bent butter knife. Now put the bent butter knife, the nails and the hammer into the windows on the left and click the gear button. You now have a makeshift telegraph key.
I'm sorry, what?
That's already bad, but it gets even better.
Moving close to the radio and the table it is sitting on. Put the glass bowl on the table. Pour the orange juice into the bowl. Put the statuette into the bowl of orange juice. Put the straightened bracelet into the bowl of orange juice. And this will automatically attach the wires to the radio. And now you have a makeshift radio.
Because apparently the orange juice is just acidic enough that if you put metal into it, it somehow works as a battery.
Oh my god, it's like Thomas Edison got drunk on absinthe.
And I should note, the game gives absolutely no hint whatsoever that this is what you're meant to do. You're just meant to just mess around with the items and figure this out. Or be really good at DIY radio repair, apparently.
I'm speechless. That is dumber than some of the joke crafting options in Fallout. Like the railroad gun makes more sense than that. The literal flaming gas tank sword from Fallout 3 makes more sense than that. The teddy bear launcher makes more sense than that. I am speechless.
So, yeah, I mean, it's not a bad game overall, it just has very weird puzzles like that. Like, I don't know if that counts as the worst adventure game I've ever played, but it's definitely the weakest one.
It's definitely the dumbest one. Oh my god, I have no words for that. It's like a mechanical manual was written by a kobold.
Yeah, that just about sums it up. And on that note, it gets crazier because the next question is from Infernity Zero, and he asks,
I have now witnessed one of the weirdest things ever. A musical based upon Portal 2. Can you think of anything as crazy along these lines?
Well, I mean, the concept of a musical dark comedy based on the movie Heathers was pretty mad. Also, everything about the brain from Planet X. Holy crap, the brain from Planet X.
dare I ask about that one?
Musical comedy about alien invasion. It's wild. It's also set in the 50s, and it has sort of the campy feeling of, you know that one Fallout New Vegas DLC, Old World Blues? Imagine that with musical numbers.
Oh, wow. It kind of reminds me of a more jokey version of that one War of the Worlds concept album.
Now it's my turn to ask, if I dare ask.
Yeah. Back in, I want to say, the 70s, according to Wikipedia, it was recorded in 1977, Jeff Wayne wrote a prog rock concept album of the War of the Worlds.
Okay. Well, I mean, I am a fan of Blind Guardian, and their entire discography can basically be summed up as Lord of the Rings, so that's not the weirdest thing I've heard, but that's still very impressive.
Yeah, that's not the weird thing I'm thinking of. I mean, well, there are multiple things I would class as weird, but also there would be the Project Cross Zone series, Thunderbolt Fantasy, because Kung Fu puppets. I mean, I know I mentioned that it was a traditional art in Taiwan, but when I first heard about it, and some of the stuff in Critical Role can get into insanity levels, like the Ye Olde Smut Shop. I mean, my god.
And everything about Scanlan Shorthalt. The walking libido.
Yeah, pretty much.
And while we're on the topic, may I just point out everything about Discworld?
Actually, that's a good point, yes.
But then again, that's deliberate absurdity. Still, it is absurdity.
I mean, I kind of wish I could also bring up some musicals, but sadly I've not watched that many musicals myself. Although, if I was a gifted songwriter, part of me would really want to write a musical for either James Bond or a wuxia kung fu film.
I would watch that.
Oh, and how can I forget? Turnabout Storm, the epic My Little Pony Phoenix Wright crossover animation series on YouTube.
Speaking of things with which Sam Riegel was tangentially involved, since he is the canon voice actor for Phoenix Wright.
That is true.
honestly, the series is so weird. If he was the voice actor for Phoenix there, he'd fit right in.
Indeed, yes. I suppose one other example, it's a very mild case, but fighting game crossovers recently have been insane. I mean, Tekken 7 as guest characters currently has Akuma, Geese from King of Fighters, and Noctis of all people.
Wow.
And we also have Blaze Brew cross-tag battles, which I guess would be a perfectly reasonable crossover, as it is a crossover between Blaze Brew, Persona 4, and Under Night. But then it also has Ruby characters in it, which makes it very weird. Although, I will say it is 100% worth it, if only for the starting animation where Ruby is fangirling over Ragnar's sword at the very start.
Oh, God. Oh, and speaking of crossovers, the Smash Bros. Series. Because we always needed to see Donkey Kong duking it out with Marth.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
I mean, don't let the writers anywhere near a story, but, you know, as a concept, it's fun.
So yeah, that's all the craziness I can think of, and unless you have anything else, Sven, then we might as well move on.
No, I think that's just about it. Our next question from IZ reads,
How would you design a villain to conflict against yourself?
well, for starters, I would make them successful and give them self-esteem.
Oh, dude, come on.
Over to you, Jonin.
Oh, dude, that's just sad.
I come here only speaking truths.
Oh. I want to give you a digital hug now.
It's appreciated. Oh, God. I'm sorry. I'm over here cracking up because self-deprecation has been my coping mechanism this week.
Really? I couldn't tell. Well, I guess in my case, I mean, I could go with the easy answer and say Richard.
I mean, he is the anti-you, and it occurs to me that I just quoted a Blue Stolly song.
I mean, as a teenager, I had a quirky theory that there is an anti-version of all of us somewhere out there, but anyway.
Well, there's 7 billion of us, so that may in fact be accurate.
I suppose in a very serious answer, back when VGT was focused more on the comedy, I did consider bringing in Linkara-style storylines, and I did have more plans for Richard as a villain, but honestly, the ideas kept changing a lot. Like I guess Richard counted now. The snarkiness is cranked up to 11, just a bit more mean-spirited, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I mean, there's whimsical snarky, there's snarky, and then there's Richard.
Yeah, so I guess I was going on the logic of we're not so different, you and I, which, given that he was the sketch character in the review show, that was kind of true in more ways than one, but
That is true.
that said, I don't think I ever intended him to ever be successful. I mean, he was successful briefly, but then I realized it wasn't really funny, so I kind of made him more of a bubbling villain, so I don't know what that says about me.
To be fair, he's more enjoyable as a bumbling villain. Also, if we're going with the theory that Richard is the anti-you, there I go again quoting Blue Stolly, then it makes sense because he's bumbling, ill-meaning, and unsuccessful.
That's true, although that implies that I'm successful in any way, shape, or form.
I mean, at least you could keep a job with the education system.
Oh, that implies I actually want to keep the job. Anyway!
I mean, that's fair enough.
Oh, this is getting dark. Sorry, IZ, this was meant to be a fun question in here.
I mean, if I'm gonna actually give a serious answer to this question, I guess, making a foil to myself, I guess I would design a villain that is disloyal, is indifferent to cruelty. I mean, I'm told I'm an intelligent wit, so I'd probably think they're smart, but would be, in reality, a dumbass. I'm fairly young, so I'd make an old villain. Oh god, my anti-me is Donald Trump.
Actually, the person I was thinking of, apologies if I butcher his pronunciation, I could never get it right, Excellus, that tactician to Walhart from Awakening.
Oh my god. Okay, I'm okay with that answer.
I mean, he was kind of indifferent and thought he was a lot smarter than he actually was, and part of the reasons I do like that second arc is the fact that it broke the trope by Walhart revealing that, yeah, I totally knew you were going to try to overthrow me at some point, dude, but you were just so harmless, I just let you carry on, really.
And that is why Walhart is the true villain of Fire Emblem Awakening.
Or at least should have been. Anyway.
He's like Ashnard if Ashnard were not a joke.
Yeah, basically.
But, yeah, I'm okay with that answer. It also depresses me less than my initial one.
Also, now that I think about it, Walhart is what King Garen should have been in Fates. But anyway.
Agreed. Oh god, agreed.
Yeah, it might have made the story a lot more compelling, but I hope those answers satisfy you, and who knows, maybe we'll see Richard again someday. I mean, I am thinking of ways to try and get him back into the channel, because I will admit it is fun to play Richard. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, just like, for the exact same reason it's always fun for me to voice the occasional asshole. Just recently we released a new D&D episode on MVL Gaming, and my character Zacharias used to be a colossal asshole, and that was what made him fun to voice.
Yeah, he's managed to go on quite a journey, which might tie into something we talk about later. But yeah. Infinity Zero's final question for this month is...
Do you guys ever see yourselves getting onto TV tropes?
I hope so. Call me a dork, but that's a lifelong goal of mine.
Yeah, I guess it is one way to show that you've made it, or at the very least you have a fan base that cares about your work.
Yeah, and plus, I'm always interested in seeing what tropes are subscribed to me.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see stuff like that. Unfortunately, I don't know if we'd ever reach that yet, partially because, well, a number of factors can include to it. The fact that I've not been able to release this show weekly or promote it regularly, but whatever the reason, I mean, we could just be shy, that's another reason, but whatever the reason, this podcast is not as successful as others.
Yeah, and to be completely fair, it's hard to be successful whenever YouTube is deliberately strangling smaller channels in favor of trash like PewDiePie. Oh, did I say that out loud?
Yeah. Unfortunately, you may have a truth in that, but yeah, it would definitely be a good goal to aspire to. Or at the very least, getting one for our original series if we ever get them off the ground.
Yeah, honestly, that's the dream for me as a writer, ending up with one of my stories on TV tropes, because that's a goalpost for success. That sounded so dorky to admit.
Well, it's one of those small long-term goals. I mean, I have many dreams, like writing a James Bond musical, writing a crossover between my characters and maybe another universe, but
Hey, you know what my dream is? Actually finishing a story.
There's that too.
Your success rate with that is way better than mine is. Even if it's a 1% tick up, it's still more than 0.
I guess that's true.
As I mentioned, I've been coping with self-deprecation lately.
Well, here, Sven, here's a Toon Junkie question.
Our next question comes from Toon Junkie.
What is your favorite bowl of soup? And could you please submit your answer in the form of a Shakespearean sonnet?
Toon Junkie, I'm not a miracle worker. I cannot learn poetry in 2 minutes.
Oh man, if only Nico from our Curse of Strahd streams was here, she'd be all over this.
Oh god, she would be. I mean, I could theoretically write you a limerick because I'm 12 and I find limericks hilarious, but you gotta give me time to prepare, man. I suck at poetry.
It might not rhyme, but I can try and do it with iambic pentameter, but then there's another flaw. Okay, now presenting a man improvising a Shakespeare sonnet and probably completely butchering it, but here we go. To eat soup or not to eat soup? That is the question. One in which the answer is always cruelly and rather definitively silenced. Soup taste, the undiscovered country from whence born no traveller returns. Or never gets to travel to, in my case. For I have received a blessing/curse. A brain cannot handle a taste so exquisite, so over the top. And as such, rejection is all that it takes. Basically, I can't eat soup because my taste is oversensitive. That's the long and short of it.
Meanwhile, I was legitimately trying to think of a limerick about chowder. Toon Junkie, look what you do to us.
I guess my favourite soup would be chowder because it's a lot tastier than powder.
Oh god, you guessed one of my rhymes. Yeah, honestly, I've got nothing. But if I think of a wonderful limerick about chowder, I will insert it in post.
Spoilers! He couldn't think of one. And the final question for this month, also from Tomb Junkie, is...
Oh no! The villainous Dr. Pig Wiggleton has stolen the colour plaid! Jonin, Sven, can your mystical duet prowess stop this wicked cad?
Tomb Junkie, you appear to be mistaking us for improvisational writers and musical performers.
Yeah, and believe me, we are not. Especially not me, because honestly, if you've ever heard me sing, well, let's just say that neighbors are displeased and dogs are very upset.
I mean, we could try, but the problem is, you know how we mentioned in our last Monkey Broadcast the confrontation from Les Miserables, and how pretty amazing it is that there is essentially an argument with two different sets of lyrics shouting at each other, but yet sounding like they're in harmony and forming a cohesive whole of a song? Well, imagine that, except not working. Now, that's probably what would happen.
That's a great way of putting it. Now, that being said, this guy's name is Pig Wiggleton, so clearly all we have to do is beset upon him a bipedal bear. Ha ha, in jokes for what we recorded yesterday.
Oh god, indeed. Also,
it's unbearable.
Also, I think this villain is also as bumbling as Richard, because I don't think plaid's a colour. I think it's a pattern.
Yeah, either that or his logic operates upon a plane unbeknownst to mortal men.
Well, this is a Tomb Junkie question, so...
To be fair, Toon Junkie operates upon a plane unknown to mortal men, so it would not surprise me.
I like to believe that he lives in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy universe.
Either that, or he's a scholar on the Discworld.
Either one would work. And yes, on that note, that brings this month's Q&A session to an end. Once again, thank you to all those who sent in the questions, and to all of you who are on the fence. Please, send us any questions you like, even if they're not serious, or if they are deeply serious. We'll answer anything. Well, not anything. Don't go asking anything weird or lewd, okay?
It's like the Christopher Lee quote, do everything you can in your life except for perhaps pornographic movies. Yes, he said that!
That makes sense. And I guess he did that in a way. God damn it, what is it with this podcast and going dark all of a sudden?
I mean, that's more of a philosophical thing. Dude lived to be 93 and did pretty much everything a human being can. That's worth celebrating.
Indeed,
It's
yes.
also the opposite of me.
Oh god damn it, dude, please.
And on that note, let's move on.
Indeed. It's now time for our next section, which is...
Clip Show!
Yeah... Sorry guys, I did record a review of Dragon Ball Super's Tournament of Power Arc with Sven, but aside from the review being a rambling mess that went on for much longer than I intended, this month has been busier than expected, so I had to forego it this time. That said, I didn't want to leave you guys with nothing, so I've put together this quick, possibly self-indulgent, list of my top 5 favourite reviews that I've done for this podcast. Now, let's kick it off quickly with some honourable mentions. Some of our recent reviews I've enjoyed are Xenoblade Chronicles 2 for going into stuff like RPG mechanics and the woes of translation, and The Last Jedi, which was one of the few times me and Sven disagreed on an issue, but I'm still proud that we were able to discuss it and keep it civil, which is more than I can say about other discussions of that film. Then there's The Walking Dead Season 2, which was great for Sven's righteous anger at a plot twist that happened in episode 4, which also caught me off guard and led to my own explosive reaction when I found out just what happened. Heck, that review is the reason why I haven't touched The Walking Dead since. And if you want comedic reviews where the two of us are laughing at bad movies, some good ones I can recommend are Final Fantasy The Spirits Within, if only for the reaction to the non-plot twist, and Thunderbirds I Go, if only for this joke. And then the scene continues, and Jim Tracy does report some news that, as it turns out, Zero X is being very successful. After 6 weeks in space, they finally reached Mars. And I thought, oh, well, that's pretty cool. They're at least acknowledging that space travel doesn't take an entire week. Wait, hang on. 6 weeks? Alan's grumpy about not going to a nightclub for 6 weeks?
Oh my god!
Okay, I can understand. You're not allowed to do what you want to do because of family engagements. It's annoying. I get it, but 6 weeks? Jesus, even the grumpiest teenager doesn't hold a mood for that long.
Even the Grinch doesn't hold a mood for that long.
And finally, interviews with Monster Girls, just because it was nice to champion an obscure series, and me and Sven actually managed to touch on some personal stuff. So, yeah, if you want to find out more about us, I definitely recommend giving that show a listen. And now, enough stalling, it's time for us to move to the top 5, beginning with number 5, Jurassic World. This is one of those podcasts where there are some tiny bits of analysis here and there, but it's mostly us making fun of a goofy movie, and in that regard, this is one of our best. Not only did I get some good reactions out of Sven, but Sven also managed to come up with 1 or 2 good lines as well. It's a point they're trying to emphasize, but it makes no context in the world, and you made a joke earlier about how there is a hipster, but one of the guys in the control room is the epitome of that,
God.
Claire is doing her rounds, looking on the staff, and then she makes a cough when she sees one of the staff members. He's wearing a shirt with the original Jurassic Park logo on it, and she's just going, don't you think it's offensive to be wearing a t-shirt celebrating a park where several people died? And he goes, yeah, I know, but that first park was legitimate, man. It just had purely dinosaurs. It didn't have any of this hybrid stuff in it.
Oh god, they simultaneously captured the whole obnoxiously, obsessively retro side of the hipster subculture, as well as that god-awful, dead-eyed, artless mentality of, oh, we were so much better before cell phones and technology and fire, Thomas Edison was a witch.
Basically, yeah. What I find even more hypocritical about that is, okay, the only evidence in the entire movie is a blink and you'll miss it Easter egg that Dr. Malcolm has written a book called God and Dinosaurs, but aside from that, there is no evidence that they ever talked about this park. How the hell does he even know it existed? And even if he did know if it existed, the park was never open to the public. He has no idea what the heck it was going to be like.
Oh, wow.
He's basically comparing the fully functional park to a vague idea that literally never got off the ground. Every single person she meets on her day to work keeps preaching at her. Basically to imply, this is what your character arc is going to be, Claire. She meets with one of the higher-ups and he goes, how's the park doing? And she goes, well, the sales numbers have been slowly declining, but the merchandise is still selling out. And he goes, no, I mean, how are the people enjoying it? Well, we seem to be getting feedback and, oh, Claire, the park was not built for profits. It should be about having fun. And Claire tries to point out that actually someone does actually have to run the park and the financial side of things. But no, the movie's not having any of it. The higher up still keeps on going, you should just learn to enjoy life and stop focusing on this kind of...
At that point, any reasonable human being would be like, wow, and here I thought they employed actual adults in this park.
Oh, God. Yeah, and it's just... If he was the only one, that'd be sort of okay, but basically everyone she talks to is preaching at her, like she meets Chris Pratt, and he starts going on, oh, you need to stop trying to take control of everything. And when she meets the kids for the first time, she gives them VIP passes, and then says, okay, kids, I'm sorry, I've got work to do, just stay around out of my aid here, she'll take care of you, and I need to sort out some meetings. Okay, bye. And then she gets a phone call from her sister, the kid's parents, and she starts crying when she says, wait, you're not with the kids? Oh, God, why can't you spend time with the children? It was supposed to be a magical weekend and everything. And it was something that initially I didn't pick up on the first time, because I thought, oh, this is a very tiresome character arc, but watching it the second time, with a mindset that was pointed out by Double Toasted's review of the film, I kind of wanted her to say, Yeah, I'm sorry I can't spend the time with the kids, but there's a reason for that. I'm working! I'm on the clock right now! I am driving to the next meeting as I speak, and no, I can't reschedule. They are very fussy people.
It's almost as if this park needs staff to run it so that the plot of the third movie doesn't happen.
Yeah, basically, it's like everyone is preaching at her. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if she just goes to the coffee bar afterwards and like, okay, one cappuccino? Okay, I can give you a cappuccino. But you should relax. You shouldn't let the stresses of life get to you.
Oh god, I want to have that run as a skit now.
At number 4, Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE. This was an obscure RPG, but it made for a really good review, because I went massively in depth about what it was that bothered me about some of its RPG mechanics, Japanese voice acting, anime tropes that were really bothering me, especially in JRPGs. And if nothing else, I have the legendary reaction, consequently followed by a legendary mental image, that Sven produced when I introduced him to the game's Axe Knight. Then there was Momori, who is a innocent child, don't want to be too harsh on her, and well, she actually has a very cool Mirage. It's the Axe Knight Drak, so by stark contrast to her small petite frame, she is actually an armored knight, which, yeah, that's actually kind of funny in a contrast, and then you see her armor, and I'm pausing briefly to Google this.
Oh no.
Let's see.
Oh no.
It can only be... I'm sending Sven an image now, but it can only be described as what happens if you try to wear a FNAF character as armor.
What the What am I looking at? Is that a bunny?
I think that's what it's meant to be, but...
Also, what is that axe? Just, what am I looking at?
Yeah, that was the most disappointing thing, because it was actually pretty touching first, because one of your mental characters is a guy named Barry who gets possessed by an evil version of this knight who used to be his Mirage, I should point out. Oh, by the way, I should also mention it's part of a bad pun because he used to be a heavy metal guitarist. Get it? Axe. Ha ha ha.
Oh god, that hurts.
Yeah, but there was a generally touching moment where he says to Drak, "You've been loyal to me, but I'm not good enough anymore. It was Mamori and her performer that saved you, so I would like you to guard her for me." And they had that touching scene where the two of them combined, and my reaction was more or less like yours, Sven. Oh, that's actually sweet, and this is a touching concept. What the f*** is that? What?
Admittedly, it has led to the amazing mental image in my mind of the Black Knight in that armor, which after Fud Night is not a stretch.
I got that mental image.
You were not prepared.
What's even worse is that my mind is now compounding on it. I'm now imagining a cute J-pop version of Against the Black Knight, and it's just...
Quick, Jonin, we need to get Riley on this situation.
Oh, God.
Fan dub in jokes, folks. Don't mind us.
Oh, God, yeah. But,
Just imagine, though, the Black Knight in that armor, like, you bought the sacred sword, did you? Yeah, you did. Oh god, I feel like the world's worst human being now.
What's even worse is that I'm now thinking that was a missed opportunity. Anyway! At number 3, it's Skyrim. Like with Tokyo Mirage Sessions, this was a great chance for me and Sven to go in depth into what it is we're actually looking for from an RPG in the first place. As also a chance for me to air my grievances about why I wasn't as thrilled with Skyrim as other people were. Plus, it did also lead to some great stories about my exploits role-playing the character of Fairy. I'm generally a role gamer, like sometimes I dip into stealth, but generally I like role-playing through a game, especially RPGs, and I like either experiencing the story or creating my own story within it. Skyrim, I honestly feel appeals more to challenge gamers in that you can do a lot in the world, but a lot of it relates more to accomplishments. Like, there's not so many character-driven stories or, like, very personal stories. It tends to be stuff like, last night I charged straight into the middle of this old temple and fought off a zombie army and snuck past this giant ogre in order to get this amazing treasure and achieve the highest rank in the mage college. You know, it's that kind of thing. It's like a series of accomplishments, which is enjoyable in its own way, but it's not the type of thing that keeps me drawn into a game, if that makes any sense.
I completely get you, and that is why, even though I do really like Skyrim, I've come across two problems playing it. One, my computer sucks at playing it, but that's my own fault. And two, it's not role enough for me. Because I'm like you, whenever I go into a role-playing game, I go into a role-playing game to play a role. And I stick strictly to that because I'm a writer, that's what I do. And Skyrim, even though it's good as far as role-playing goes, it's not like some of Bethesda's previous games, by which I mean, it's not like the Fallout series. Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas are insanely role-intensive, because the main plots are very, very personal to your character, and pretty much all of the quests can be personalized to be done the way you want them to be, true to the way that you play your character, and build your character. Whereas Skyrim pretty much all just lead to the same outcome.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you can do kind of whatever you want in Skyrim, but otherwise, it is mainly more about the accomplishment, like the list of accolades you can add to your character. I mean, it actually got to the point where the only way I could really roleplay was rebelling against the system, by which I mean, the character I created was Fairy, who was a high elf, and because I wanted to try and find some way to roleplay, because the dialogue wasn't giving me many options to do that, I basically made it so that Fairy was a rogue with a heart of gold, and to do this, I basically made her an exhibitionist with a drinking problem.
Oh, there are worse characters to play in that game.
Yeah, it's not like she ran around in her skippies or anything like that, but it's pretty much, she basically went with either dresses or any armour that showed as much skin as possible, so she mainly walks around in the fur armour most of the time.
To be fair, though, that is a hilarious concept.
That roleplay got so out of hand that there are moments when I'm just randomly walking through a dungeon and I'll just go into my inventory and grab one of the ale bottles. It has a very minimal effect gameplay-wise, but it's just something that...
And it's in character.
Yeah, so... This is when I found out about marriage, or at least how it works in Skyrim. Lydia had been following me for a long time, and even though, as Sven says, she had all the personality of a fish, I was determined to rebel against the system and decide, you know what, Lydia, we've been through a lot together, let's marry. So I donned on the amulet and turned round to face her. She would not respond. She just stared there blankly as my character was wearing what is essentially a gigantic engagement ring round her neck, but and she still bluntly refused. So, in the end, the person my character Fairy ended up marrying was a woman named Ogren the Unbreakable. Fairy's only encounter with said woman beforehand was a bar fight she got into whilst drunk.
Oh my god. Is this... I literally, seriously have to ask now, are we in Skyrim or Vegas?
Number 2, Les Miserables. These days, Sven doesn't get to lead reviews very often, but when he does, he can produce some good ones, and this was definitely one of his best. Approaching this review from a character-by-character basis, or rather actor-by-actor basis, was actually a stroke of genius. Plus, on a side note, searching the net for clips of these singers and actors at their best made editing this episode a lot of fun.
Which makes my personal favorite Marius a bit funny, considering his track record as a musician. In this category, I give it to Gareth Gates, in the 2011 West End production. Tell me, Jonin, are you familiar with the series Pop Idol?
I am, yes. In fact, I was about to say I have not heard that name in a long time.
That's because he disappeared and started doing theater. And unlike poor Nick Jonas, he pulled it off with aplomb.
Huh.
Because, I swear to you, Gareth Gates' Marius is the only Marius I have ever liked. Ever.
Wow.
And the reason for that is he actually plays the character with emotion.
Wow. Okay, that is... I'm not gonna lie. I think that he's pretty heartwarming, not just for the character, but just that, well, Gareth Gates has managed to do something beyond reality TV.
Yeah, and being a pop singer, unlike poor Nick Jonas. And speaking of jokes about douchebags, moving on to the kind of antagonist, kind of deuteragonist, Inspector Javert, my personal favorite character.
Ah, yes, I do know he is one of the bigger characters in the film.
Yeah, and you would not believe how difficult it was for me to choose between Philip Quast in the 10th Anniversary Edition and Norm Lewis in the 25th Anniversary Edition. Incidentally, also the only black man ever to play the role.
Huh.
And it's funny I should say that, because that's actually closer to Javert's description in the book, where he's actually described as being Romani. So, yeah, kudos to the 25th Anniversary Edition for casting kind of accurately in that regard.
I guess it's one of the weird things that happens, because I know that there are some adaptations that for some weird reason gloss over that. Like, I know in the Bond franchise, and yeah, oh god, now I think about it, it wasn't until the Daniel Craig reboot that they actually made Phoenix Lighter black like he was in the original novels.
Oh wow, I had no idea that was the original idea.
Yeah, that's that was one of the more awkward things amongst the Bond franchise. That and the casual sexism is part of the reason I can't watch Goldfinger anymore.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Ugh, the 60s.
So, is there any way of breaking the tie between the two actors, or?
I've given this thought, and I've come to a decision. First, I'll touch upon Philip Quast, who is amazing in his own right, but he plays the character in a way completely different to Hugo's original idea. Quast's Javert is sort of the archetypical smirking imperialist who lords over the streets with a reign of terror. Now, Javert had a reign of terror in the books, but he was not a smirking imperialist. In fact, I'm not sure he ever even smiled. So I have an issue with his take on the character in that regard, even though he knocked every song he ever sang as Javert into orbit. But Norm Lewis does the same thing, while portraying a Javert much closer to the book, race aside. Norm Lewis portrays Javert as a terrifying, unstoppable force of nature, who growls curses and swears his way into dispatching the law, and does so with the complete mental justification that he is right. He cuts a terrifying figure, made more terrifying by the fact that he completely believes what he's doing.
Another brawl in the square, another stink in the air. Was there a witness to this? We'll let him speak to Javert. Monsieur, the streets are not safe, but let these vermin beware. We'll see that justice is done.
And finally, at the top, it's a three-way tie, because really, it's hard to think of these reviews as separate entities. The Mass Effect trilogy. Yep, all three reviews of Mass Effect, Mass Effect 2, and Mass Effect 3. The reviews of these three games contain all the best qualities in the other four entries. We're able to make some jokes at their expense, because, let's face it, there are some glitches and odd plot points of these games, especially at the ending of Mass Effect 3, but we were also able to have full discussions on the mechanics of these games. We had a really interesting discussion about how we roleplayed our various Shepards. with Sven being the veteran in this case, since he's played the series a lot longer than I have. And with that, I give you some of the best moments from our reviews of Mass Effect 1, Mass Effect 2, and Mass Effect 3. One thing that's kind of amused me, it's funny that Sven brought up the Dirty Harry comparison, because one thing that kept appearing about the back of my mind is that it sells you as being the idea of James Bond in space, but the plot honestly plays out like a 90s cop show at times. Like, I've already mentioned the first section, which is basically, Saren was behind the attack on Eden Prime, and I can prove it. For God's sake, Shepard, that's a Spectre you're talking about!
It's true, though. It plays out like Lethal Weapon.
And it only moves on from here. Like, there are 3 main story quests, like Sven said, and a 4th that kind of serves as a midway one. And in almost each and every one, there's a meeting with the council afterwards, which nearly always borders along the lines of, Shepard! You've just destroyed a priceless Prothean ruin!
And because this is a BioWare game and you can choose your character's personality, this does in fact lead to opportunities where you can just go full Dirty Harry and turn the hologram off, cutting them off mid-sentence.
And this also builds up to the climax, which is basically, alright Shepard, you're off the case now, it's over, it's done with, you're grounded, you can't go into this restricted area, and then the group essentially decided to go anyway.
Yeah, basically, Mass Effect is just one long sequence of spitting in the face of the actual authorities above you.
More or less, yeah, like, even if you, okay, I should probably explain. Like Sven says, you get different dialogue options, and they all tend to be under 2 paths. Paragon, which is trying to be the best person you can possibly be, and Renegade, which is basically do whatever the F you want as long as it gets the job done.
Yeah, just imagine it like this. You can go the Eliwood route or the Hector route.
Yeah, that is actually a good way of putting it. But even in the Paragon route, like, Shepard will just calmly and carefully explain, but it honestly feels like my IT job at times when people are complaining and you're just like, yes, I know it's unfortunate that pyramid exploded, but I did it to save someone and I figured that was the more important thing. Because I will freely admit, in Mass Effect 1, I had all the weapons available to me, but I just dumped everything into pistol and used that because there was literally no other reason to use any other weapon other than personal preference. So this game actually encouraged me to start using the Collector's Death Beam or the shotgun at close range, which when combined with the fact that my Shepard was a Vanguard and it has the charge, which if you upgrade it enough actually slows time after the impact. Oh, that was so fun. It was risky, but fun.
Oh yeah, Vanguard is awesome. I personally played, what's the class? Sentinel, with which you can summon armor made of data and become a tank.
Nice.
And I love the changes that they made to the specific classes in Mass Effect 2, because in Mass Effect 1, you really had no specific reason to go with a class like Technician, or in my case, Sentinel, because their armor and weapons were trash. But in Mass Effect 2, every class has an awesome aspect. Like, if you're a Technician, you get combat drones. If you're a Sentinel, you get tech armor. If you're a Vanguard, you can literally bulldoze things.
Yeah, and a lot of the bionic powers changed as well, and whilst I was initially upset that they got rid of Push, Shockwave and Charge more than made up for it.
Yeah, and of course they do have the ability Biotic Throw, and Biotic Throw is hilarious. Like, I was doing the Project Overlord DLC, and Sentinels, just so you know, have the most ridiculous power cooldown times known to man. Like, you can use a biotic throw and have another biotic throw ready in about 1 second.
Oh, wow.
So I was just sitting on a catwalk in cover, looking over at the Geth across from me like, oh look, fish in a barrel! Throw, off into space, throw.
Oh,
it was just funny, if nothing else.
Yeah, for me, my similar experience was that was when you were surrounded by husks in the collector ship, and I was basically using Shockwave to essentially play 10-pin bowling with them, like, oh look, an army of waves. Dun 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 dun. Ah!
So essentially, your method of combating the collectors was getting a whole bunch of bowling strikes. My method of combating the collectors can be summed up with the phrase, that's a home run!
Kylo Lang. Now, when he first showed up, he was a kind of cool menacing threat, especially when he was going up against Vane. But here's the thing. I kind of understand what they were going for here, and it was a pretty good idea. It would be kind of ridiculous if Cerberus didn't have an agent that was at least Shepard's equal, because then Cerberus would be kind of a joke, because all you could throw at them were waves upon waves of useless mercs who get blown away by shockwaves and pistols.
Pretty much. So, it makes sense to have a character who fills that role. But...
yeah, he's... well, the thing is, honestly, Kylo Lang, as a cybernetic ninja, does not feel like a part of the Mass Effect universe. He feels like a fan fiction written by an edgy teenager, like, oh, I got the best villain, he's like a cybernetic ninja, and he comes up to Shepard and he's like, I'm going to kill you, and then he just sits there and charges while a gunship shoots at him, and he's all like, well, ha ha ha, you all pathetic compared to me.
Crawling in my crawl. I'm so sorry, everyone.
It's just, yeah.
And, incidentally, I would just like to point out that his name is actually Kai Lang, but he looks a lot like Kylo Ren, so I forgive you.
Yeah, sorry, I get yeah, Kai Lang, now that I've got the name right. The problem is, like, he does actually manage to defeat Shepard at one point, hence the emotional moment, but the thing is, he doesn't really come on better than Shepard, because literally the only reason he wins is because he has a gunship and makes a couple of lucky shots, and then after that moment, you have this all powerful moment, and then you go to the emails, and there is message from the Planetary Council. You open it, and it's Kai Lang, and I kid you not, write in an email that goes, yeah, the Council wouldn't send an email to you because they're dead. They're dead because you failed them. The story of Shepard should be over. Actually, no, there should be a chapter where you die because you're dead. I meant to take you seriously? I was incredible.
I know, right?
And here we are. I hope you enjoyed this stroll down memory lane, and now I need to think of a way to end this episode. Luckily, even back then we were too tired to do a quickfire review section, so allow me to use this Dragon Ball-esque transition.
So, Jonin and Sven have completed this review, and now they have to face the quickfire review section. Can they do a review in under 60 seconds? Can they think of anything to review? Will Jonin's voice survive the rest of this podcast? Will they be able to do another month? Will they get enough questions? Will their generous fans provide them with more things to talk about? Find out next time on Monkey Boardcast.
I want to put it another way. Until next time, cheerio.
Adios. I can think of nothing else to do but clap.
That was Monkey Boardcast, a monthly review and discussion show hosted by the Jonin Monkey and Sven the Crusader. If you feel that you've been the subject of slander or that your copyright has been misused, please PM me and I'll try and get round to fixing it as soon as possible. We also welcome any comments, be it feedback or your own viewpoints on any of the things we've discussed. Until next month, have fun, kids!